Some towns collect history, others collect legends. And then there are places like Harrison, Michigan, where the two seem to collide. For generations, locals have shared stories of phantom voices in the woods, mysterious figures along Bud Lake, unexplained lights, haunted houses, and strange events that seem tied to the area's past. Could these stories simply be folklore passed from one generation to the next? Or does Harrison's history still linger in ways we don't fully understand? Tonight, we're exploring some of Harrison's most enduring paranormal legends and the history that may have helped create them. We'll start with one of Harrison's oldest buildings. Today it's known as the Harrison District Library, but longtime residents remember it as the Surrey House. Over the years, visitors and staff have reported unusual experiences, particularly on the second and third floors. One of the most frequently repeated stories involves sightings of a Native American girl appearing briefly before vanishing. Whether these encounters are paranormal or simply products of imagination, the building's age and history have made it one of Harrison's most talked about locations for ghost stories. Curiously, the Surrey House isn't the only place where people have reported seeing a Native American girl. Similar stories have surfaced miles away near the old Spikehorn settlement. Another local story comes from the area around the old Spikehorn settlement south of Harrison. Spikehorn himself has long been surrounded by legends. Founded by the colorful outdoorsman and storyteller known as Spikehorn Myers, the area attracted hunters, fishermen, tourists, and eventually its own collection of strange tales. Among the stories shared by locals are reports of a young Native American girl seen walking quietly through the woods before suddenly disappearing. Witnesses describe her as appearing only briefly, often near trails or wooded areas, before vanishing without a trace. Some believe the sightings may be connected to Native American camps that once existed throughout the region long before Harrison's lumber boom. Others suggest the stories are simply local folklore that has grown over the years. Whatever the explanation, the tale bears a curious resemblance to reports from other locations around Harrison, where witnesses have also described seeing what appears to be a young Native American girl. Coincidence? Or could the stories be connected? Not far away sits an area known today as Tank Hill. According to local legend, during Harrison's rough and tumble lumber era, saloon owner Jim Carr allegedly buried men, and perhaps a few women, in the hillside below one of his establishments. As with many frontier stories, separating fact from legend can be difficult. But if even part of the tale is true, it would certainly explain why some residents consider Tank Hill one of the town's more unsettling locations. Perhaps no location in Harrison has generated more paranormal stories than the White Pines Townhomes. Local tradition claims the property once served as seasonal hunting and fishing grounds used by Native Americans before the lumber boom transformed the region. According to long circulating stories, workers allegedly uncovered bones of both English soldiers and Native American, and artifacts during construction. What happened next depends on who is telling the story. Some claim the discoveries were ignored so construction could continue. Others insist no such discoveries were ever made. Whatever the truth may be, reports from residents have continued for years. Tenants have described lights turning on and off by themselves, unexplained banging on walls, muffled voices coming from the woods, shadowy figures, and the lingering smell of wood smoke where no fire exists. Some even claim that on certain nights of the year, distant drumming and chanting can be heard from the surrounding woods. Coincidence? Misidentification? Or something else entirely? One of Harrison's more intriguing legends suggests that human remains were once discovered near Bud Lake and connected to a forgotten conflict from the era of Pontiac's Rebellion. The story is often linked to events surrounding the Battle of Bloody Run. However, despite repeated references online, documented evidence confirming such a discovery remains elusive. If the story is true, it would represent a fascinating piece of local history. If not, it remains one of Harrison's enduring mysteries. If this event really happened, it needs a plaque. The world needs more historical markers. So many fascinating historical events have happened in locations, and there are no plaques. Not every story involves a haunted building. One family with a cottage on Bud Lake shared an experience involving a young child who repeatedly described seeing an older man walking the shoreline. The unusual part? According to family members, the child's description closely matched a deceased relative he had never met. Stories like this are difficult to verify, but they continue to circulate around the lake. No Michigan ghost story collection would be complete without a woman in white. Everyone has one. Several Harrison residents claim to have seen a female figure dressed in white near Bud Lake after dark. Witnesses describe her appearing near the beach, moving along the shoreline, or lingering near the bathhouse before suddenly disappearing. Whether the sightings share a common source, or are entirely unrelated, depends on who you ask. One of Harrison's oldest and most persistent ghost stories comes from Wilson State Park on the shores of Bud Lake. Long before it became a state park, the area was home to the Wilson Brothers sawmill during Harrison's lumber boom. According to local legend, sometime during the early 1930s, a group of teenagers gathered at the lake one evening. After spending the night drinking, they decided to take a boat onto Bud Lake after dark. As the story goes, the boat capsized in the darkness. The teenagers struggled in the cold water, but no one on shore could see them, and their cries for help went unheard. The next morning, fishermen allegedly discovered her lifeless body sitting on a bench near the beach house. Days later, the bodies of her friends washed ashore. Soon afterward, her stories began to spread. Visitors claimed to see the ghost of a young woman walking along the beach, wandering near the bathhouse, or staring out across the lake as if searching for someone. Over the decades, campers have continued reporting strange experiences. One story tells of a camper who left his tent on a hot summer night and walked down to the beach to cool off. As he sat alone in the darkness, he heard footsteps nearby. Then he heard a young woman calling out.
"Where are you?
A few moments later came another plea.
Help me."
The camper spotted a female figure near the stone walkway and called out to ask if she was all right. The figure turned toward him, but according to the story, something was terribly wrong. Where her eyes, nose, and mouth should have been, there was nothing, only a blank face. Startled, the camper grabbed his camera. As he attempted to photograph the apparition, the figure reportedly shrank into a small point of light before disappearing completely into the night. Whether fact, folklore, or a tale told around campfires for generations, the story of Wilson State Park's Ghost Girl remains one of Harrison's most enduring paranormal legends. And perhaps the next time you're standing on the shores of Bud Lake after midnight, you'll hear someone calling from the darkness. Perhaps the most fascinating collection of reports comes from the old Reinke House near Bud Lake. Family members described a wide variety of strange encounters over the years. Mrs. Reinke reportedly saw two young girls holding hands as they walked through the home before disappearing toward the lake. Mr. Reinke claimed to see a large man standing in an upstairs window, only to discover the room was empty moments later. Their daughter later reported seeing the same figure standing inside her closet after noticing a mysterious light. Soon afterward, her room was allegedly found completely overturned, with belongings scattered across the floor. The family's son told of hearing a ball bouncing in the attic above his room every few weeks. According to the story, he eventually became so accustomed to the sound that he would simply tell whatever was up there to stop. And strangely enough, it usually did. Whether these experiences were paranormal, misunderstood events, or family folklore, stories about the house continue to survive decades later. And finally, we come to one of Harrison's lesser-known paranormal locations. A house on Stockwell Road has reportedly experienced an astonishing variety of strange activity. According to stories associated with the property, witnesses have reported everything from possible Bigfoot encounters to a disembodied female voice commanding the homeowner to get out. Even more disturbing are claims involving physical attacks directed at a young family member. The property has reportedly seen multiple deaths and layers of history. Could those events somehow contribute to the stories told today? No one knows for certain. Whether these stories represent genuine paranormal activity, misunderstood events, local folklore, or a combination of all three, one thing is certain. Harrison has no shortage of mysteries. From Bud Lake to Tank Hill, from old homes to wooded trails, the stories continue to be told. And perhaps that's the most interesting part, because long after the people involved are gone, the legends remain. Are these stories 99% true or not? If you've experienced something unusual in Harrison, or know a local story I didn't cover, share it in the comments. I'd love to hear it. And if you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. I'll make more.